the sacred embrace of the Creator. Long ago, in a village nestled deep within the heart of the wilderness, there lived a young warrior named Tashka. His life was one filled with trials and joys, as the great forces of nature constantly shaped the path before him. From a young age, he was taught by the elders that every step, every breath was a gift from the Creator. They spoke of the Great Spirit, who watched over all living beings with love and care, guiding them through both the struggles and the victories of life. Tashka had always believed in the Creator's presence, but as he grew older, he began to question the stories told by the elders. How can the Great Spirit truly be with me? He wondered. When I face such hardships, where is He? Why does the sky darken and the winds howl when I am in need of peace? One bitter winter, Tashka set off on a journey to find answers to these questions. He walked for days through the snow, each step heavier than the last. His mind, troubled by doubt, weighed him down like the frost that clung to the trees. As the journey grew more challenging, his spirit began to wane, and he felt the coldness of the world closing in around him. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the mountains, Tashka came upon a vast, frozen lake. The wind howled fiercely, the ice cracking beneath his feet. As he stood at the edge of the water, feeling the sting of the cold wind on his face, he cried out, "Great Spirit, where are you now? Where is the love and peace that the elders spoke of?" At that moment, a light appeared on the horizon, brighter than the stars. The wind slowed, and the air grew still. Tashka felt a warmth in his heart, and he heard a soft voice within his soul. "I am here, my child, always here." Tashka was taken aback, for he had expected no answer. But in that stillness, he understood. The Creator had always been with him, guiding him even in his moments of doubt. Through the darkness of the storm, the Spirit had never left his side. The love of the Creator was constant, an unbreakable bond, woven into the very fabric of his life. It was not just in moments of peace, but in times of struggle too. The Great Spirit was with him, carrying him through. Even in the coldest winds and the darkest nights, the voice continued, "I am here. Even when the path seems uncertain, my love is your strength. Walk with me, and you will never be alone." Tashka knelt by the frozen lake, tears of realization streaming down his face. He had asked the Creator to show himself, but now he knew. The Creator had been beside him all along, whispering through the winds, guiding him through the seasons of his life. In the quiet moments of doubt, the love of the Spirit was still there, unshaken and constant. From that day forward, Tashka never questioned the Creator's presence again. He returned to his village, not with answers that could be spoken, but with the quiet assurance that no matter the storms of life, he was never truly alone. The Creator's love surrounded him, like the earth that holds the roots of the trees, firm and constant. And as Tashka grew older, he shared this truth with the next generation of warriors. "The Great Spirit's love is always with you," he would say. "It is a love that never fades, never abandons. Through every trial and triumph, you are held in His sacred embrace." And so, the people of the village learned to walk with the Creator, trusting in His constant love and guidance. In the hardest of times, they felt His presence, and in the moments of joy, they gave thanks for His eternal embrace. For they knew, as Tashka had learned, that the Creator's love was not bound by circumstance, but was a light that would never dim. The warrior spirit, in the time when the world was still young, in a village surrounded by the whispering pines and the towering mountains, there lived a brave young warrior named Wiyaka. His people trusted him for his strength, courage, and wisdom in the face of hardship. Yet, like all warriors, Wiyaka faced his own battlesome with enemies, some within his own heart. One winter, a great storm came to the land. The winds howled through the village, and the river swelled with the melting snow. The elders spoke of a great trial that would come upon Wiyaka's tribe, a test that would challenge the spirit of all who call this land their home. The young warrior, though known for his strength, felt the weight of doubt pressing heavily upon his heart. "How can I face this challenge?" he asked himself. "What strength will I have when the storm tests the very heart of my people?" The villagers gathered in the center of their sacred grounds to prepare for the trials ahead. The elders spoke of faith in the Creator, and faith in the strength that had been passed down from their ancestors. They reminded the people of the many times that the Creator had guided them through hardship, times when it seemed the winds would break them, yet they had emerged victorious. Wiaka, however, struggled with his doubt. His mind wandered back to past battles where he had felt defeated, where he had lost hope. He thought of the time when his closest friend, Tahoma, had fallen in battle, and the great sorrow he felt as he stood over his friend's body. He wondered how he could go on without his spirit beside him. But as the elders spoke of the Creator's strength, he remembered something. His heart swelled as he remembered another time. Not long after Tahoma's death, when he had stood alone in the forest, feeling lost and broken. It was there, in that quiet place, that he had heard the voice of the Creator calling to him. Wiak, you are not alone. Your strength comes from within and from the Creator's love that never leaves you. Those words had carried him through that dark time, reminding him that, though he could not see the Creator had never abandoned him. That memory began to rise in his heart like the dawn. As the storm grew fiercer, Wiaka stood at the edge of the village, his thoughts turning to the past victories where the Creator's strength had been with him. He thought of how he had overcome his doubts after Tama's death, how he had found courage even in the face of his deepest sorrow. It was not his own strength that had carried him, but the power of the Creator that flowed through him. I have faced battles before, Wiaka whispered to the winds, and the Creator was with me then. He will be with me now. With renewed strength, Wiaka led the tribe to face the storm. They worked together, standing strong against the winds, finding shelter and safety as the storm raged. And through it all, the warrior's heart remained calm, knowing that the Creator's strength was in him and in his people. Each step they took was a testament to the faith they carried in their hearts, the faith that had been passed down for generations, and the faith that had never failed them. When the storm finally passed, the village stood tall. The people were weary, but their spirits were strong, for they had faced the trial with faith, remembering the many victories that the Creator had guided them through. Wiaka looked out over his people and felt a deep sense of peace. The strength he had once doubted was always there, within him and within his tribe, ready to carry them through whatever challenges would come next. As the sun rose over the mountains, Wiaka spoke to the people. The Creator has given us strength not only for today, but for all the days before. Remember, each victory, each trial overcome is a reminder that we are never without His love and guidance. We carry His strength within us, and through our faith, we will continue to stand tall, no matter what storms we face. From that day forward, Wiaka never doubted the strength of the Creator again. He knew that with faith, no challenge would be too great, and that the Creator's love would always carry him through. The sacred peace of the earth. Long ago, in a village nestled beside the mighty river, lived a young woman named Island. Her name, meaning joy, was a gift from her parents who hoped that she would bring light into the lives of others. Island was known for her gentle spirit and kindness, and her heart was as wide as the river that ran beside their village. But even those who are filled with light-faced moments of darkness, and Island's life, though peaceful, was not free of trials. One autumn, the winds began to change. The village had always been a place of harmony, but that season, the winds brought unease. Strange events began to unfold. The crops failed, the river rose too high, and a deep sadness fell upon the people. Island felt it too. The worry hung in the air like the heavy clouds before a storm, and no one was untouched by it. Her friends, her family, all seemed to carry the weight of the world on their shoulders. Island's father, a wise elder, gathered the people of the village to speak of the troubles that had befallen them. "We must hold on to hope," he said, his voice steady but filled with concern. "We have faced hardships before, and we will face them again. But it is in these moments that we must trust in the sacred peace that the Creator has given us." Island, however, found herself struggling. The peace her father spoke of seemed distant. The worry, the fear, the uncertainty pressed against her heart, and she felt as if she were being swept away by the storm of emotions that surrounded her. How could she find peace when everything around her seemed to be falling apart? One evening, after the gathering, Island walked alone to the edge of the river. The sun had just set, casting a warm glow over the water. But Island could not feel the warmth. Her heart was heavy, and the fear that had taken root in her mind kept her awake at night. As she sat by the river, she closed her eyes and prayed to the Creator. Creator of all, I am lost in this storm of fear. I feel the weight of the world upon my shoulders. Please show me your peace. I need your strength to carry me through this darkness. As the cool night air whispered through the trees, a calmness began to settle within her. The winds that had once seemed so violent now seemed gentle, carrying with them a deep sense of peace. It was as if the river itself was speaking to her, soothing her heart with its steady flow. In that moment, Island felt the presence of the Creator surrounding her, filling her with a peace that she could not understand. It was not a peace that came from her own strength, nor from the world around her, but a peace that transcended all the chaos and fear. It was a peace beyond understanding, a shield against the anxiety that had clouded her thoughts. The fear that had gripped her heart began to melt away, and she felt light, as if she were being cradled by the arms of the Creator. The next morning, Island woke with a sense of calm she had not known before. She stood at the edge of the village and looked out at the sky, which was now clear and bright. The storm had passed. The winds had settled, and with them the worry and the fear that had gripped her heart had also been lifted. Island knew that the troubles of the village were not over, but she also knew that she no longer faced them alone. The peace that the Creator had given her was now a shield, protecting her from the negativity and anxiety that had once overwhelmed her. She trusted that no matter what came, the Creator's peace would always be with her, guiding her through the hardest of times. In the days that followed, Island shared her experience with the people of the village. She spoke of the peace that had come to her, the peace that had shielded her from fear. And as the village faced the challenges that still lay ahead, they too began to feel the peace of the Creator surround them, a peace that carried them through their darkest, the journey of the heart. Long ago, in a village nestled between the great mountains and the deep forest, there lived a young man named Tazi. Tazi's heart was strong, and he carried a deep sense of pride in his abilities. He was a skilled hunter, a wise fisherman, and a protector of his people. But despite his strength, Tazi was troubled. There were moments when he felt lost, as if the path ahead was unclear, and his spirit was burdened with worry. One season, the people of the village faced great hardship. The harvest was poor, and the game was scarce. Tazi could no longer catch the fish that fed his people, and the animals in the forest avoided him. The people began to suffer, and with their suffering, Tazi's own heart grew heavy. He began to question his purpose, his strength, and whether he could truly help his people. His pride, which had once been a source of strength, now felt like a weight that kept him grounded in fear moments. One evening, as the sun began to set, Tazi wandered into the forest to seek guidance. The sky was painted with shades of orange and purple, and the air was cool with the coming of night. He sat by a quiet stream, the water flowing gently over the rocks. The sound of the water was soothing, but his heart remained restless. Island learned that God's peace was not the absence of storms, but the presence of a strength that carried her through them. It was a peace that could not be understood by the mind, but only felt in the heart, a peace that stood firm even in the midst of the fiercest trials. And from that day forward, Island knew that no matter what came, she would always have the Creator's peace to protect her, to guide her, and to carry her through the storms of life. He closed his eyes and called upon the Creator, asking for guidance, for strength, and for clarity. "Great Spirit," he whispered, "I have tried so hard. I have used all my strength, but still I cannot find the way. I do not know what to do, and I am afraid. Please, show me the path that will help me help my people." As he sat in silence, a calmness began to wash over him, as if the air itself had shifted. A soft wind whispered through the trees, and Tazi felt a sense of peace that he had never known before. It was as though the very spirit of the earth was speaking to him, gently lifting the weight from his heart. In that moment, Tazi realized something he had never understood before. He had been holding on too tightly. His fear and doubt came from his unwillingness to surrender his heart to the Creator's plan. The wind seemed to wrap around him, comforting him. He opened his eyes, and in the stillness of the forest, he heard a voice, not with his ears, but deep in his heart. It was the voice of the Creator, soft but strong, like the quiet hum of the earth beneath his feet. "Let go, Tazi. Surrender your heart to me. Trust that I will guide you. The path you seek is not one of your own making, but one that flows from my love and wisdom. Trust in me, and you will find the strength to carry on." In that moment, Tazi understood. He had been trying to force his own way, relying on his strength and skills alone. But the Creator's plan was different. It was a plan of trust, a plan of surrender. He needed to let go of his fear and his pride and instead trust that the Creator's wisdom would guide him through every situation. As the night fell, Tazi stood up, feeling lighter, as if the weight of the world had been lifted from his shoulders. He knew now that he did not have to carry the burden alone. He did not need to have all the answers. He only needed to trust and surrender, knowing that the Creator would lead him in the right direction. The next day, Tazi returned to his village with a heart full of peace. He no longer worried about the things he could not control. Instead, he focused on the Creator's promises, knowing that his plan would unfold in its own time. The people of the village could see the change in him. His strength was no longer in his own pride, but in his faith. He led his people with a new spirit, guiding them to find new ways to adapt to the difficult times, always trusting that the Creator's plan would bring them through. In time, the village began to heal. The earth gave them what they needed, and the animals returned to the forest. But more importantly, Tazi learned to walk in faith, trusting in the Creator's wisdom and surrendering his heart to the path that was laid before him. The lesson of Tazi's journey spread throughout the village, reminding everyone that true strength comes not from the pride of the self, but from the trust and surrender to a higher power. No matter the struggles they faced, they knew that they were never alone. They could always trust in the Creator's plan, and in doing so, they would find peace, strength, and guidance through every storm. And so, Tazi's heart, once heavy with doubt, now rested in the peaceful understanding that the Creator's plan was always at work. His trust in that plan became the source of his strength, and his surrender to it became his greatest victory. The Spirit's path. In a time long ago, when the wind spoke wisdom through the trees and the stars shone brightly over the earth, there lived a young warrior named Awan. Awan was strong and skilled in the ways of the people, but his heart was troubled. He had always relied on his own instincts, his sharp mind, and his hands to guide him. Yet, in recent seasons, he found himself at a crossroads. He had lost his way, not in the forest or on the river, but in his heart. The spirits that once spoke to him seemed silent, and the path he once followed was no longer clear. One cold winter morning, as the snowflakes fell gently to the ground, Awan went to the highest peak of the mountain. He sat on the frozen earth, his breath a mist in the cold air. He closed his eyes and called out to the Creator, asking for guidance. "Great Spirit," he prayed, "I have lost my way. My heart is uncertain, and I do not know the steps I should take. Please, show me the path once more." The wind stirred, carrying with them the whispers of the ancient ones. Yet the answer did not come in the way Awan had expected. There was no thunder or bright light, no great vision to fill his mind. Instead, a calm voice within him, like the softest of winds, spoke to his heart. "Trust, Awan. You are not lost, for I am with you. Even when you falter, I will guide you." The young warrior felt a warmth spread through his chest, and though the snow continued to fall around him, he felt peace. He stood and turned toward the village, but the uncertainty still lingered in his heart. He did not know what he should do or where he should go. The path ahead seemed fogged, and his feet felt heavy with doubt. Days passed, and Awan continued to search for the path. He went to the river, seeking the wisdom of the flowing water. He asked the trees, whose roots ran deep into the earth. He even sought the counsel of the elders, but still, the answers did not come. Yet, each time he felt lost, the gentle voice within reminded him, "Trust. I am guiding you even when you do not see the way." One evening, as the sun dipped low behind the mountains, Awan found himself at the edge of a great forest. He had wandered deep into the trees, seeking something he could not name. The darkness of the forest crept in, and he began to feel afraid. But then, as if on cue, a small bird landed on a branch before him, its feathers glowing softly in the dim light. The bird chirped 3 times, and in those simple sounds, Awan understood. He had not been alone in his journey. The Creator's Spirit had been with him all along, even when he could not see it. Awan closed his eyes and breathed deeply. He remembered the voice that had spoken to him on the mountaintop, the voice that had promised to guide him even in his uncertainty. He trusted it now, knowing that his steps would not be led astray. He let go of his need for certainty, for perfect answers, and chose to walk with faith in the Spirit's direction. As he moved forward, the forest seemed to open before him, the trees parting as if welcoming him. He felt a peace in his heart that he had not known in many seasons. He no longer needed to know exactly where the path would lead. His steps were guided by the Spirit, and that was enough. The next morning, Awan returned to his village, no longer burdened by doubt. He knew that his journey had not been a mistake, and that even in his moments of uncertainty, he had been held in the hands of the Creator. He shared his story with the people, speaking of the voice that had led him, the Spirit that had been with him every step of the way. The people listened with open hearts, knowing that the same guidance was available to them whenever they too felt lost. From that day on, Awan never walked alone. He understood that the Creator's guidance was not always loud and clear, but it was always present, like the quiet breeze that touches the skin. He knew that even in his missteps, the Creator's grace would redirect him, leading him back to the right path. And so, Awan continued to live with faith in the Spirit's guidance. His heart was at peace, for he knew that the Creator would always lead him, even when the way seemed uncertain. He no longer sought the path with his eyes alone, but with the trust that the Spirit would always be there to guide him, gently, through the storms and stillness of life. The gift of the Spirit's provision. Long ago, in a village nestled between the great mountains and the wide, flowing river, there lived a young man named Tawaki. Tawaki was known among his people for his bravery and his willingness to help others. His heart was pure, and his hands were always ready to lend assistance, whether it was hunting, fishing, or helping his elders. Yet, despite his strength and good heart, Tawaki found himself struggling in silence. The seasons had changed, and the harvest had not been kind. The animals that once roamed the forests had become scarce, and the fish no longer swam in the river as plentifully as before. Tawaki's family had enough to eat, but it was barely enough to get by, and there were many others in the village who were facing the same hardship. Tawaki would rise early each morning and spend the day in the forest, hoping to catch something. But the days were long, and the land seemed to be taking more than it gave. One day, Tawaki sat by the fire, staring into the flames. His heart was heavy with worry for his family and his people. His father had always taught him that the Creator would provide, but Tawaki began to feel uncertain. How can we survive if the land no longer gives? He asked, his voice filled with doubt. How can we trust in the Creator's provision when it seems the world is silent? The elders had always said that in times of uncertainty, one must listen to the quiet voice of the Spirit. Tawaki closed his eyes, focusing on the stillness of the night. As the fire crackled and the wind whispered through the trees, a voice, soft and clear, filled his heart. Trust, Tawaki. I see your struggles and I know your heart. Do not fear, for I will provide what you need, even in the darkest of times. The next morning, Tawaki felt a sense of calm he had not felt in many moons. He rose early, as he always did, and set out for the river. As he walked, he thought of the words the Spirit had whispered to him. He did not know what would come, but he walked with the faith that he would not be abandoned. As the sun rose higher in the sky, Tawaki reached the river's edge. He knelt by the water and noticed something strange and old. Worn basket was caught in the reeds, half submerged in the river. Tawaki stood and reached for the basket, wondering how it had gotten there. When he pulled it out, he was astonished to see that it was filled with more fish than he had ever caught in a single day. His heart raced with joy and disbelief. Tawaki knew then that this was no accident. The Creator had heard his cries, and though it was not in the way he had expected, he had been provided for. He gathered the fish carefully, his hands trembling with gratitude. As he made his way back to the village, Tawaki realized that the Creator had provided not just for him, but for his entire community. He was carrying enough to feed his family, and there would be more to share. The people of the village saw Tawaki returning with the basket, and their faces lit up with surprise and joy. Tawaki told them of the strange gift from the river, and they all gathered to share in the abundance. They offered their thanks to the Creator. knowing that his provision had come at the perfect time. It was not just the fish that had been given, but the reminder that even in times of hardship, the Creator's faithfulness never wavered. From that day on, Tawaki's faith was stronger than ever. He had learned that sometimes the Creator's provision comes in ways that cannot be predicted or understood. It is not always in the form that one expects, but it is always exactly what is needed. Tawaki continued to help others, knowing that his heart's trust in the Creator would guide him, and that even in times of struggle, God's faithfulness would provide. Tawaki's story spread throughout the village, and the people began to look for the quiet signs of the Creator's presence in their own lives. They learned to trust in his faithfulness, even when the land seemed barren and the rivers ran low. In time, the village flourished once more, not just in material abundance, but in the faith that had been strengthened through the tribes. And so, Tawaki continued to live with the quiet understanding that the Creator's provision is always there, even when it seems hidden, and that faith, trust, and patience will always lead to the blessings that are meant for each of us at the right time. The healing of the heart. In a village shaded by the ancient pines and surrounded by the majestic mountains, there lived a young woman named Ayuana. Ayuna was known for her kindness and gentle spirit, but she carried a burden that weighed heavily on her heart. Long ago, her sister, Tala, had left the village after a great argument. The two had once been inseparable, but a misunderstanding had torn them apart. Ayuna had tried to reconcile, but pride and bitterness had taken root in both their hearts. Years passed, and the pain of their separation only deepened. Ayuna could no longer remember the words they had argued over, but the echo of their broken bond remained. The elders often spoke of the healing power of forgiveness, but Ayuna struggled to forgive herself for her part in the rift. She felt that if she had been more patient or more understanding, maybe things would have turned out differently. Yet every time she thought of Tala, the bitterness returned, clouding her heart. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the mountains, Ayuna sat by the river, gazing at the rippling water. The wind whispered through the trees, and the air was filled with the scent of pine. She closed her eyes, trying to find peace, but her thoughts swirled around Tala, the hurt, and the unspoken words that had never been forgiven. She wished she could go back and change things, but the past could not be undone. As she sat in silence, she heard the soft voice of an elder, the wise grandmother of the village, who had always been a guiding presence in her life. Ayuna, child, the elder said, you are troubled by the past, but remember, the Creator's love and mercy are greater than any mistake. It is through forgiveness that the heart is healed. Ayuna opened her eyes and looked at the elder, who was sitting beside her now. The grandmother's face was kind and full of understanding. But how can I forgive? Ayuna asked, her voice heavy with pain. How can I forgive myself for what happened with Tala? The elder placed a gentle hand on Ayuna's, her touch warm and reassuring. Forgiveness is not forgetting, child. It is letting go of the pain and allowing the Creator's love to heal the wounds. You have carried this burden long enough, and it is time to lay it down. The Creator's mercy triumphs over judgment. His love can heal all things, even the deepest hurts. Ayuna listened closely, her heart softening. But what if Tala doesn't forgive me? What if she holds on to the anger as I have? The elder nodded, her eyes filled with wisdom. Forgiveness is a gift you give yourself, child. It is not about waiting for the other to change, but about freeing your own heart from the chains of bitterness. When you forgive, you open yourself to the healing power of love. And remember, if Tala holds on to her pain, it is not for you to carry. You must trust in the Creator's plan and let go of what is not yours to bear. Ayuna sat in silence, feeling the weight of the elder's words settle into her heart. It was true. She had carried the pain of the past for far too long, and it had taken root in her spirit, making her weary. But the Creator's love, as the elder had said, was greater than all her mistakes. She could let go. She could forgive. The next day, Ayuna set out for the village where Tala had lived for many years. Her heart was uncertain, but she felt a stirring of hope, a sense of peace that she had not felt in years. As she walked, the path seemed lighter, as if the weight she had carried for so long was beginning to lift. When Ayuna arrived at Tala's home, she found her sister sitting by a fire, much like she had always done in their childhood. Tala looked up, surprise and sadness in her eyes as Ayuna approached. They stood there for a moment, words unspoken between them. I've carried the weight of our past for too long, Ayuna said softly, her voice trembling. I am sorry for the hurt I caused. Please forgive me. Tala looked at her for a long time before speaking, her voice quiet but clear. I've carried it too, Ayana. I've missed you, but I didn't know how to find my way back. I forgive you, sister. Tears welled up in Ayana's eyes, and she felt the chains of guilt and regret fall away from her heart. They embraced, and in that moment, the healing had begun. Ayuna realized that the forgiveness she had sought was not just for Tala, but for herself as well. She had been free all along, if only she had trusted in the Creator's mercy and love. From that day forward, the two sisters rebuilt their bond, and the village watched as their relationship blossomed once again. Ayuna had learned that forgiveness was a path to freedom, a freedom that came from surrendering the past and embracing the love and mercy that the Creator offers to all who seek it. The elders' words had proven true. In forgiving herself and Tala, Ayuna had been healed. The Creator's love had triumphed over judgment, and the brokenness in her heart had been restored. As the seasons changed and the years passed, Ayuna never forgot the lesson of forgiveness, for she knew that the Creator's mercy was always there, waiting to heal and restore, no matter how broken the heart. The light of the Spirit. In the heart of a small village, nestled between the great rivers and towering mountains, lived a man named Weei. His name meant one who shines brightly, and his life had been a reflection of that light. Weei had not always lived in the peaceful harmony that now defined his spirit. In his youth, he had wandered through life filled with anger and confusion. The pain of loss, betrayal, and hardship had clouded his heart, making him distant and closed off from others. He had known little of love, feeling as though he had been abandoned by the Creator, left to fend for himself in a world full of shadows. But there was a time, a turning point, when his life began to change. Weei had encountered an elder during a time of great despair. The elder, a woman with deep wisdom in her eyes and peace in her voice, had shared the story of how God's love could heal even the deepest wounds. She had told Weei that the Creator's love was always present, even in the darkest times, and that it was through embracing that love that true healing could begin. She had shared her own testimony, speaking of the many challenges she had faced in her life loss, sorrow, and hardship, but also of how, in the midst of all that, God's love had been her constant companion. The elder's story had touched something deep within Weei, something he had long forgotten the truth, that the Creator's love was unconditional, always present, and never ending. Over time, Weei began to feel the weight of his burdens lift. He had learned to surrender his pain and embrace the healing power of love. He came to understand that the Creator's love was not just for him, but for everyone. His heart, once filled with bitterness and anger, now overflowed with compassion and grace. He knew that he could no longer keep this love to himself. He was called to share it with others, just as the elder had shared her testimony with him. One day, as Weei walked along the river, he came across a young woman sitting by the water's edge. She appeared lost, her eyes empty and distant, as though the weight of the world had fallen upon her shoulders. Weei felt a stirring in his heart. He knew the pain she carried, for it had once been his own. He approached her slowly, offering a gentle smile. "Are you all right?" he asked softly, his voice kind but full of concern. The young woman looked up, startled, but there was something about Weei's presence that made her feel safe. "Speak," her voice trembling, as she shared the sorrow that had overwhelmed her Herther family's struggles, the loss of a loved one, and the deep despair she felt as though she would never find peace. Weei listened carefully, his heart aching for her, but he also knew that he had something powerful to offer, something that had transformed his own life. When she had finished speaking, he gently placed his hand on hers. "Do you know that there is a love that never abandons you?" he asked quietly. "A love that will heal your heart, even in the deepest pain. I've walked through darkness before, but I found that the Creator's love never left me. It was always there, waiting for me to turn towards it. I know that this love can heal you too." The young woman looked at him with a mixture of confusion and hope. But how can I believe in something like that? How can I trust in love when so much pain has filled my life? Weeyaya's eyes softened and he smiled gently. I know it's hard, but the Creator's love is not based on our strength or our ability to understand. It's a love that is given freely, without condition. All you have to do is open your heart to it. It is the most powerful force in the world, and it can heal wounds that nothing else can. As he spoke, the young woman's face began to soften, and the first glimmer of hope sparkled in her eyes. She had never heard such words before, and for the first time in a long while, she felt a sense of peace begin to settle in her heart. Weeyai continued, his voice calm and reassuring. I've shared this love with you today because I know what it's like to carry the weight of pain. But I also know that when you open yourself to God's love, it changes everything. It will guide you, heal you, and help you share this love with others who need it, just as I am doing now. The young woman nodded slowly, her heart beginning to stir with a new understanding. She felt as if something had shifted within her, as though the darkness she had carried for so long was being pushed away by a light she had never known before. She felt her soul stirring, a quiet whisper within her telling her that this love was real and that it was for her too. From that day on, the young woman began her own journey of healing. She sought peace, just as Weeyaya had, and in doing so, she found her own strength. She began to share the story of God's love with those she met, spreading hope to those in despair, just as Weeyaya had done for her. Through this sharing of love, the circle of grace continued to grow, and the village became a place of healing, where God's light shone brightly in the hearts of all who believed. Weeyaya's life had come full circle. He had received the Creator's love, and now he was passing it on, knowing that love could heal, could restore, and could bring hope to all who were willing to receive it. He had become a beacon of light, just as the Creator had always intended, sharing the love that had once healed his own heart and now filled his soul to overflowing. In the sharing of God's love, Weeyaya had discovered the greatest truth of all, that the more love you give, the more it multiplies, and the more it changes the world. The journey of the Spirit. In a village nestled by the edge of a great forest, there lived a young woman named Weeyaka. Her name meant the one who walks with purpose, and from the moment she was born, it seemed that she carried within her the energy of the earth itself. But like many who are young, Weeyaka struggled to find her place in the world. The weight of uncertainty would often cloud her spirit, and the question of why she was placed upon this earth lingered in her heart. She would watch the elders, their lives filled with wisdom and grace, and wonder if she too would ever find the path that was meant for her. Her journey toward understanding began when she met an old woman who was known to the village as the keeper of stories. This woman had lived many years, and in those years she had seen the triumphs and tragedies of life. The old woman knew that to find purpose, one must first learn to listen not only to others, but to the quiet voice that speaks from within. Weeyak, the old woman said one day as they sat by the fire, "You were not placed in this world by chance. There is a reason you are here. You are a part of something greater, and your life has meaning beyond what you can see." Weeyaka looked into the fire, the flames dancing in the darkness. She had heard such words before, but they never felt real to her. She had often wondered if she was truly meant for something special, or if she was just another face in the crowd. The old woman continued, her voice soft and steady. "To understand your purpose, you must first embrace who you are. You are precious in the eyes of the Creator, Weeyaka. You are loved beyond measure. When you walk with this truth in your heart, you will see that every step you take has meaning, and every moment will lead you closer to the life you were meant to live." Weeyaka sat in silence, allowing the words to settle into her heart. She had spent so much time searching for something external, for signs or answers that would show her the way, but perhaps the answer had always been within her. She realized that her identity was not something she needed to search for, it was something she needed to embrace. She was already a part of the Creator's plan, and by accepting this, she could find peace. The next morning, as the sun rose over the hills, Weeyaka stood on the edge of the village, looking out over the land. She could feel the gentle pull of the wind against her skin, and for the first time in her life, she felt truly present. The world around her seemed to vibrate with life and purpose, as if every leaf on the trees, every stone on the ground, and every bird in the sky was speaking to her in a language only her heart could understand. Her purpose was not something distant or far away, it was right here, in the very breath she took, in the gifts she carried, in the love that flowed through her veins. Wiyuak understood now that her life was meant to be a reflection of the love that the Creator had for all things. She didn't need to look to others for validation, nor did she need to search endlessly for a great task to perform. She simply had to be who she was, walk with love, and share that love with the world. With newfound clarity, Wiyaka began to take each day as it came. She greeted each moment with intention, knowing that every encounter, no matter how small, was a part of her journey. She shared stories with the children in the village, listened to the elders with reverence, and worked the land with gratitude. Through each act, she felt the presence of the Creator, guiding her steps and filling her heart with a deep sense of fulfillment. As Wiyaka's life unfolded, she saw that her purpose was not tied to the grand accomplishments she had once imagined. Her purpose was in the quiet moments, the connections she made, and the love she shared. She found joy not in the search for something more, but in the peace of knowing that she was exactly where she was meant to be. She was precious in the eyes of the Creator, loved beyond measure, and every step she took was a part of the beautiful dance of life. One day, as the seasons changed and the trees began to shed their leaves, Wiyaka stood once more by the fire with the old woman, now a dear friend. The fire crackled as the wind whispered through the trees. "You found it, haven't you?" the old woman asked with a smile. Wiyaka nodded, her heart full. "I've found my purpose, not in the future or in some distant dream, but in the here and now. I am who I am meant to be, and I am loved. That is enough." The old woman smiled, her eyes twinkling with pride. "You were always enough, Wiyaka. You always have been." And with that, Wiyaka understood. She had embraced her identity in God, and in doing so, she had found the joy and fulfillment that she had once searched for in vain. She walked each day with the confidence that God was with her every step of the way, guiding her toward her true calling, the path of love, peace, and purpose. From that day forward, Wiyuak continued to shine brightly, just as her name had always foretold, sharing the love that had transformed her life, and showing others that they too were precious and loved every step of the way. The promise of victory. In a time long ago, in a village near the great river, there lived a young warrior named Aki. He was known for his strength and courage, qualities that were revered by his people. Yet, beneath his brave exterior, Aki struggled with doubt. Despite his many victories in battle, the challenges of life often weighed heavily on his heart. The loss of loved ones, the pain of defeat, and the uncertainty of the future gnawed at him like a constant storm. One evening, as the sky turned dark with the promise of rain, Aki sat by the fire, staring into the flames. The smoke twisted upward, and the heat of the fire brought no comfort to his troubled soul. He was weary, tired of the constant fight. His spirit felt drained, and he wondered if he could continue on this path. It was then that the village elder, a wise woman who had lived through many seasons, approached him. Her eyes, though old, held a spark of life and understanding. She sat beside him in silence for a moment before speaking. "Aki," she began softly, her voice like the whisper of the wind through the trees. "I see the battle in your heart. The world has not been kind, and the weight of life's challenges is heavy. But know this, victory is already yours, for it has been promised." Aki looked at her, confused. "Victory?" he asked. "I feel as though I am always fighting, always struggling. Where is the victory in this?" The elder smiled gently, her face a map of wisdom and experience. "True victory does not come from the battles you fight, nor from the hardships you endure. True victory is found in the trust you place in the Creator. His promises are unchanging, and He has already declared that you are destined for triumph. Even in the face of struggle, His victory is assured." Aki's mind struggled to comprehend her words. How could victory be assured when so much in his life felt uncertain? How could he trust in something he couldn't see? The elder continued, her voice like a soothing balm to his weary spirit. "You see, Aki, The Creator does not promise a life without challenges, but He does promise that you will not face them alone. He is with you, guiding you through every storm. And though the winds may blow hard and the path may seem long, He has already paved the way to victory. Trust in His plan, and you will find peace, no matter what comes. Aki sat in silence, reflecting on the elder's words. He had always been taught that strength came from within, from his own resolve and power. But now, he realized that true strength came from surrendering to the knowledge that victory had already been won, that God's promises were sure. The next morning, as the first rays of sunlight broke through the clouds, Aki set out for the day with a renewed sense of purpose. He no longer viewed the challenges ahead as obstacles to overcome, but as opportunities to trust in the promises of the Creator. Every battle, every hardship, became a reminder of the victory that was already his. As time passed, Aki encountered many more struggles, but with each one, his faith grew stronger. He no longer fought alone, but with the assurance that God's strength would carry him through. His victories, though they still came through battle, were no longer defined by the outcomes of the fight. They were defined by his trust in God's promises, and the peace that came with knowing that victory had already been assured. And so, Aki walked through life with the quiet confidence of one who knows that no matter what happens, the victory is already won. The storms might come, the battles might rage, but he no longer feared them. He trusted in the Creator's plan, and that trust gave him the strength to face anything that lay ahead. In the end, Aki became more than just a warrior. He became a living testament to the truth that victory in Christ is eternal and unchanging. His life was not measured by the battles he fought or the struggles he endured, but by the faith he placed in the Creator's promises. And as long as he held on to that faith, he knew that no matter what came, he was destined for triumph. Aki's story was passed down through the generations, a reminder to all who heard it that though life may be filled with challenges, the victory in Christ is assured. No storm, no battle, no hardship could take away the triumph that had already been declared. All that was needed was to trust, to surrender, and to walk in the peace of knowing that victory is not earned but given through God's eternal promises.